folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily TA wrap. Well, we take a look at these markets each and every day, looking at them from a neoclassical perspective and asking ourselves, what happened today and what might it tell us about tomorrow? I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the Rocky Mountains. Do a show on Sunday as well. Of course, there's a lot of material on the site to keep you up to date with what's happening in terms of videos, things of that nature. A lot of good information, so check us out. As far as what happened today, flat. Really didn't go anywhere. Looks like all eyes are on the hill for tomorrow with Yellen. Maybe she's going to be doing some yelling as she has to somehow either pick this market up and move it farther, provide that catalyst, or potentially provide the sell the news to take it back down. I'm not sure which one it's going to be strictly from that point of view. Of course, they definitely liked what she had to say the last time. It was when this rally started, or really when it kicked in the last time around. But we can look at the charts and see if there's anything there to tell us. We did see the dollar up pretty good today. Pretty much all other currencies were trading down against it. This has been a strange scenario here with the dollar, in my opinion. I haven't been able to quite understand, with the Fed quote-unquote tapering, why the dollar wouldn't see strength, but it's been struggling to find strength. Gold traded down today. Silver as well, pretty much flat elsewhere, not much happening elsewhere. So let's look at what's happening here. Let's go over to the daily chart on the S&Ps. Okay, so the first thing I would point out if I'm looking at this is we've seen 2 spikes now, you know, with some decent volume comparatively on them. And we're not talking huge volume expansion, but in particular, that one that we went up right and we chased off the shorts, this one, that one had a good volume expansion. Now the last half of that move was short covering, and I did a piece on that, and if you want to check out the piece you can. There's some material here on the side about that. Matter of fact, here about shaking the trees, I believe, is where we talked about that. But the point here is that, you know, you're hitting it with some good volume. You got 2 swing point highs, right? Those highs, if you take them out, usually that leads to 2 to 3 bars to the upside. So this is kind of an important level. Now, the issue comes in with respect to how we got here, right? Remember, we did a straight up move off the bottom. Now it has set up the potential for an ABCD structure to the top side. But that has been a 137 to 150 roughly. So you're talking about 63 and 50. That's 113 points. Pretty much straight up over 3 weeks. Now it has settled down a little bit here, right, and done some sort of not really consolidation, but you know, kind of consolidation with an upward slant. Right, that move in here, you know, what is that, about eight trading days now, is really going from 27 to 50, right? So we're talking 23 points. 23 points is a fairly normal range. The issue is, how does this thing get higher? You know, what's going to drive it? And what's going to keep it going after it's already done this? And to me, that's the biggest issue. And I suspect, and what I've written about, is that the best way for this market to go up is to go down. So in other words, to get a good trade up, you'd like to see it shake out some of these weaker holders, right? Find some support in this area potentially. That's where I've been thinking it should try to come back to. And then make that breakout, right? Because at that point, you've got some good, you'd have good 2 or 3 weeks consolidation here, about 4. Actually, if you go back to this bar, you're talking about 2, 3, and let's say it takes another week and a half to get out, you're talking about a month's consolidation. That's enough of a consolidation to really get something going, right? So that would be the ideal case. Now this market doesn't always give you idea, right? And I could easily see this market going up tomorrow on Yellen, testing that top, potentially getting over it and holding it, stretching for a couple, 3 days, and then coming back. I mean, that could easily be another case. Another easy case to imagine is you get over it, you fell again, and then you come back hard, right? So I think that, you know, when you look at it from that perspective, you know, I can see a couple scenarios. We go up here, but if we go up here right away, it's going to be really hard to keep stretching this thing higher. It's not impossible, it's just going to be hard to do. That's just generally looking at this. This was another inside bar day, another doji, 2 in a row. Dojis a lot of times can lead to reversals, but so far it hasn't. Let's go into some of the other charts here, though, that would give us a better indication potentially of what's happening. So let's pop over, look at the others. Let's start with the Russell. Russell went up to test the highs today. So the Russell gets up to the high, has volume, right? Fails on price. So you go over it, back underneath it, underneath this high, right? You're trying to take out this high. You can't quite get over it and stay over it. But you got volume compared to the volume that's sitting on that high. So to me, that says you're going to go back and you're going to try it again. So the Russell to me looks like it's going to try one more time. The Russell actually has a nice ABCD structure already in place that could take it much higher if it wants to run. And folks, this has been a straight up move. So again, just like the S&P, it'd be a lot better off if it came back down here and did some testing. But then again, you know, right now this market kind of has a mindset of trying to break out. That's the Russell. Russell looks bullish to try again tomorrow. If we go over to the broader NASDAQ, the NASDAQ actually failed on a breakout attempt. So 2 days back, tries to go over 21.6 there. You go over with 21.0, get over it, back under it. That's a failure to break higher. So the NASDAQ fell. So that's the main three on these indexes. What we can do, though, is look at the sectors. So let's pop over to the sectors, because I think the sectors are probably giving us a better clue. So if I run through the sectors, I'm going to do the failure cases first. Transports. That one had already failed up here to get over the highs, right? This one's just trying to get back to the breakdown bar, and it still hasn't gotten there. So transports are lagging, and they're lagging big time. That's not a good scene. That's a failure from 2 days back. It's still pulling back. Yeah, I can go back up and bounce a bit, but this one is just consolidating at best. Semiconductors. Semiconductors are a big deal because the semis are a good you know, third of the weighting in the NDX. Semis go over that top just like the NASDAQ, back underneath it, less volume. After a big press down, hitting towards that swing point high, didn't hit it, but almost hit the swing point high. That high's 43.13. We got back to 43. Oh, we did 43.04. I'm mistaken. So this one actually got into the high. That's a retest, regenerate, but you hit it with more volume. That says it's going to do some more work down there. Can it hang here a little bit longer? Sure it can if the whole market does, but that one is a failure wanting to come back. Materials. The materials went up. This is the XLB. They go up, test a high, 46.69. They get over the high, 46.57. They close underneath it, 46.55, doing 6.7 onto 7.3. Not as much volume. That's a failure at the highs on a swing point high. Volume and price. That one wants to come back. So the first four all look to try to come back. The only other one that's really doing anything on the bad side is the utilities, and the utilities are simply just rolling over. On the positive side, you got discretionary, and this has been a heck of a run on the discretionary. So you come all the way off. Remember all those stocks, retails in particular, the clothing, all getting hammered down. They all trade down. I mean, that move was this was the first sector to be coming off like it did. 66.85 down to 61. So I was about a 12% move, 11% move. The low is 61.11, 61.03. So you left volume at the lows. That's not a good thing, but we're right back up here testing the highs. And lo and behold, you're pushing them with volume. You break over this swing point high, you're testing this one now, and you got one more up above it. This thing looks like it's going right back to the highs. Positive signs there. If I look over at the, let's see, healthcare. Same thing. Healthcare consolidating at the highs. That one doesn't look bad. If I look at the XLK, XLK is consolidating at the highs. That one doesn't look bad either. Now, yeah, these can go either way, but that's consolidating 8 bars across. And what was the other one? XLI. Let me see. XLI actually consolidating as well. And the other one that I was looking, oh, I got it wrong up here. That's the XLF. The XLF actually is a negative. We'll look at that one next. So here's the XLI. He had a nice push up. This one looks like it's going to get back up there and test resistance. The one that's really lagging, that's probably the most concerning, is the XLF. And that's a negative one too. And that is that it's consolidating here, right? But this one's really lagging as well. It's gone in and tried to do a retest. And so far, that retest regen lower has been successful. So if this market starts to move tomorrow, glance over at the XLF. If the XLF isn't over these highs and pressing up against that breakdown bar, then that move probably isn't going to stick. Right? This sector is a sector that has to go with the SPYs, the SPX, if the SPX is going to go higher. Technology's taken it so far, right? Somebody else has to kick in. Energy's probably not going to do it. Energy's just consolidating. I doubt energy's going to do it right now. The XLF has to come in, right? Energy can push back up to the highs, but the XLF's going to have to drive with it to get it up there. So that would be the sector. If you add them up and you look at them, they're about split even. So like the indexes, the sectors really aren't telling us anything either. But if we go over and look at the bonds are starting to push back up into this low range. Now the bonds have been in a range here so far, and I'm looking at long bonds. This is the 20-year Shima. Well, it's not Shearson anymore. It's they just call it the iShares now. That's the range it's been trading in. It tested the bottom, couldn't break out. That would make rates higher, right? Money coming out of bonds. What does it do? It tests on less volume, right? It goes back the other way. Now it's going to come into the big bar, or it's going to try to, and I don't know that it's going to have the volume. If it does pick up volume, or if it gets into the bar, that's a big high volume bar, and it's going to go try to get to it up here. Right? So if you're looking at bonds, you don't want to see bonds going up tomorrow along with the market. You want them just go sideways and continue to go sideways. Now if you look on the shorter end of the curve on the bonds, there you're going to see that they're already pushing back into those big numbers. And so if I go to like, let me pop in here to, let's go to the 7-year, the IEF, and look at that one. It's, you know, it came down below it. It's back into that big bar trying to make it to the top. So these will be trying to break out on the shorter end of the curve, pushing rates lower, while the longer end of the curve is just trying to get up into that big bar. Why is that? Well, the Fed has been buying a lot of the long end of the curve. The tapering is taking some of that demand off the long end and making it harder for bonds to actually rally on the long end of the curve. But you can see it on the short end. They keep pressing interest rates down on the short end of the curve. Another one that's interesting in the bond land, so to speak, is junk bonds. Junk bonds just made a huge run. Junk bonds don't make this kind of run unless they're pretty confident that there's not going to be failures, right? Because junk bonds are insuring corporate debt that's not so solid. Breaks out over 2 swing point highs, run into the breakdown bar over here. Top of that one's 41.38, 41.35 tonight. We'll see if it gets up and over it, which would take it all the way back to the swing point high. Two swing points broken here, got a little pullback there, retest, and regenerated higher. So junk bonds seem to be suggesting this market's on fine footing, but just like the rest of the market, that's a heck of a run already. And then if we go look at the dollar is the last piece of the puzzle, and the dollar has been trying to press lower. Well, today it gaps up, right, holds up here. This makes more sense to me. This thing should be trying to move up, not down. Right now it's just a huge range. That range travels all the way from top to the bottom, and then of course there's like a mid-range on both sides here. So, you know, I would think it tries to run up into the borderline here between the top and the bottom of the range. That, if true, should put pressure on gold. Gold came back today. It looked like it was ready to come back. Of course, it's looked already for a while. All it did today was fill the gap. I wouldn't be surprised to see gold go back up. There was volume on this bar. Go back up and test the top of that bar, 129.07. If you're looking for shorts, that might be a good sweet spot, so to speak. And part of the reason we were thinking it would pull back today, and I wrote an article about this as well on the front page, gold stocks have been rolling over. Gold stocks come back into this big bar. They look like they can bounce from here, but they, at best, they're in a consolidation. More than likely, these guys are going to pull back too. And that probably comes on Friday. I think you get a bounce out of these tomorrow. Where does that leave us with respect to the indexes? Well, before we draw our conclusions, let's pop back over, because we know Yellen's going to be the big thing tomorrow. And what I'd like to take a look at real quick with you, and I didn't have a chance today, is to look at Europe and look at a few of these foreign markets and just see how they're lining up. So if we go to the DAX, okay, so the DAX pushed less volume. That top yesterday was 97.11, and it got over it, back under it, slightly less volume. That looks like a failure. That does look like a failure. I don't think the DAX is going to trade higher before Yellen starts talking. And actually, she probably starts about the time they close, so I don't think that one's going to help. Okay, so the FTSE came off with some volume. Came back down last night into this bar, 6784. Did 8.4 over there. Did 7.3 on the way back. And this thing's going to bounce. So the FTSE's probably going to bounce. And let's see what the CACs did. The FTSE had already finished up an ABCD structure, or almost finished it. CACs is hanging. And it's got just about the same amount of volume. So Europe looks mixed to flat, right? Probably a slightly higher bias, but probably flat by the time we start. So they're not going to help us. Let me go look at Hong Kong, because China has introduced a lot of volatility into the yuan, and that's been throwing a lot of volatility into their market. It held again. This was going to try to push higher again. So somebody asked me last night about FXI. I was saying it was probably going to try to get back deeper into this bar. Well, maybe they asked me 2 nights ago, because that's what it did. It got into the top of that bar. If you're still looking to buy it, this looks like the spot. So for whoever asked me that a couple nights ago, I think. All right, let me go back. I want to look at the chip country, because our chips are so extended here. Let's see what Taiwan looks like. And let's take a quick peek at our friends up in Canada and over in Australia. Got subscribers, pretty good amount of subscribers in Canada and in Australia. So I always try to look at those guys. Okay, so chip country is going to try to go higher again. So that's probably good for the stocks. Yeah, I'm going to try to get up to the top there. The Toronto Exchange. Okay, so that one was trying to pull back, is pulling back. So if I look at this one, you know, it looks like where it's going to get to before it's over is a retest regen off this high. And it's going to be more than 6 bars by the time it gets there. Actually, it's already 6. So I would think you test to the top of it. You got some nice volume sitting right there. If you want to buy Canada, watch it and try to buy it right there. That's going to be the spot. And let's look at Australia. Now, Australia had been on a huge run, gapped up on huge volume when they got over their highs. And they're kind of rolling over. They're probably not going to get back to the highs. That green area you see there, that's the support zone. That's where money should come back into this, and I would expect it to. So Australia, a little bit more of a dip, and then probably some more buying. Foreign markets, foreign to me, of course. Overseas markets is a better word. Europe looks mixed to flat, can go higher. You know, all they need to do is consolidate and go higher. Asia looks to me like it's going to try to go higher, mostly. Good friends up in Canada probably pulled back. I didn't look at Brazil. Let me take a glance at Brazil. But Brazil has kind of got its own little problems. It's got inflation, and it's got a lot of government largesse. And this one's going to go test that bottom again. Brazil looks to break out the bottom, actually. It's definitely going to test it. This is not a good looking chart. If you're in Brazil, you really shouldn't be. If you're in Brazil, you should be short. You got a high volume low. You know, it doesn't have the volume down here, but it sure keeps creaking towards it. It looks like it's going to test it before it's done. The only other one is the India market that's big in terms of overseas markets. And it's not big in terms of size, just in terms of what it means, and it's back up to close the gap. So it made that run back to the gap. It's going to try to close it, and it's pushing decent volume. So that one actually looks okay. All right, let's go take a few questions here. Looks like they're piling up. So I had some mailed to me. Let me take those first before I forget them. So if you wanna chat with me, you know, just pop over to the site. Come into this, and there's 3 ways to communicate with me. They're all here, so just you know, either through live stream, you can text me, or you can write to support, and we'll pick it up there. As far as the questions that were emailed, let me go, or actually texted, let me go take a look at those first. They had to do with the VIX and the VXX, and so the question was, is this bottoming? Now, of course, the VIX, if I get the right symbol up here, the VIX and the VXX, the underlying, these are, of course, typically if they're bottoming, the market, the volatility is bottoming and is about to rise again, right? So the ideal here is that when this thing shoots up, the market shoots down, and vice versa. When this one comes down, the market goes up. So you know, naturally, I'm sure the question is you know, what does it mean? Are we going to go lower? You know, there's no volumes on these things. There are no volumes. Maybe there are some in the options if I had, you know, and actually pretty soon I will have access to all the options contracts. Maybe we can start looking at that and see if we can get a heads up there. As far as price, yeah, you're coming down to test again. You're going to test this low again tomorrow. It looks like 1344. If it holds, yeah, I can flip around, but you know, 12 is possible too. There's 2 swing point lows there as well. So, you know, I don't put a lot of weight on this, mainly because I've never been able to use it to really time anything. By the time this thing starts moving, usually it's almost too late to do anything, or at least for me it has been. And part of that is there's not volume on it, and so I haven't paid as much attention to it as probably others. So let me look at it on a weekly real quick. Yeah, so you've got, you know, just look at it from a large range, right? Let's look at it from this perspective. And I'm gonna use those two because that's more of what the range is. There's still this much to go, right? But when this spikes, of course, it can spike that much. So, you know, which one's the greater? Well, there's clearly about twice as much up here as there is down here. Now with the VIX, to me, you just got to let it get really low, and then you gotta be patient and just wait for a spike if that's what you're going to trade. I can't tell you. I just can't tell you. There's nothing here to tell me. And without volume, I'd even handicap more. But you know, I've never been able to read this chart well, so I'm just being honest with you here that I can't tell you. I don't know. It does look on a very short-term basis. It will test that bottom again and probably do it tomorrow, it looks like, the way it's coming back. All right, let's see here. Questions. So my friend Frederico, he wants to buy some marijuana, I guess. MJNA. This is a penny stock, trades trades on the OTCC, I think. I'd have to look that up, but I suspect it does. So on the daily, you can see there's not a lot of volume. Well, actually, that's not true. I mean, this thing's doing huge volume, huh? Doing 9, 10, 11. Okay, so the first thing I see when I see a stock that trades at this price point and is doing this much volume is this is just a go-go stock, right? They're just pushing this thing around. So it's hot because, you know, I live out here in Colorado and this stuff's legal now. And so these stocks are picking up a lot of interest as a result of the legalization of marijuana and potentially the broadening of that legalization across multiple states. Does this stock have anything behind it? I didn't take the time. I just got this right before I got on air here and started looking at it. I didn't take the time to look at it. I suspect they probably don't even make money. So if you're trading this, you got to be trading this from the perspective of just trying to trade it for scalping. So when I look at it from that perspective, right, you got a low here of about 19 cents, a high of about 50, and it's trading at 32. So you're right in the middle. So strictly from a monthly view, it didn't quite hit the top, had a lot of volume. Yeah, from a monthly view, it looks like it could go back towards the top potentially and trade up there. From this point of view, I'm looking at the weekly now. You had a big push up, right? I'm sure there was news driving this. You get almost to the top, huge volume, it fell back down. I don't know. Yeah, you can trade it. Just you're going to have wide stops though, and a lot of karma with you to stick with this. But just don't overtrade it is all I'd say. Yeah, it can go back up. Let me see if there's another couple questions here. Can I look at the EWI? Let me look at that one right quick as I'm running out of time. This is Italy. So Italy gets over the highs, fading back in, a lot of volume up here. Yeah, I don't know about that. That's the weekly. Let me go back to the daily and see what it looks like. Yeah, it looks alright on the daily. Let it come back and do a retest regen off this high, right? Use a retest regen off this high to make your trade, and yeah, then you can play it. It looks okay. And XHB is going to be bullish. I didn't get to it, but the ITB broke out today. These guys are going to break out too. They did. I think home builders, XHB, ITB, both of them same thing. They want to go higher. As far as tomorrow, it's all about Yellen. It's a perfect setup for a sell the news. Will they sell it? I don't know if they sell it immediately. I do think this market's going to have an extremely hard time legging higher in any meaningful way immediately. That suggests to me that if you get a nice pop up, take a little bit more money off and wait. If it can leg higher for 2 to 3 days, even better. Take a little bit of money off up there and wait. But you're probably going to get a retrace off of it if you don't get it immediately. I'm LA. That is and was your daily TA wrap. Have yourself a great night. Take care. And I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Good night, folks.